Welcome back to Deep Roots Wellness Podcast. I'm your host, Jennifer Thompson, certified life coach, emotion code, and body code practitioner. Today, we're exploring a sacred mystery that lives within all of us. So close, we often overlook it. It's consciousness. Is it just a thought? Is it spirit? And how does it shape the way we feel, heal, and move through our human experience? This episode is more of an invitation than a conclusion. I'm not here to give all the answers because I don't have them. And truthfully, no one else has that I have found. But I am here to invite you into the mystery, into your own awareness, to that place behind the noise of your thoughts, the stillness that's always been there. Have you ever stopped to wonder, when you think a thought, who's the one watching that thought? Why is there a part of you that can question your own thinking? Who's the one behind the commentary? So let's go a little deeper. If consciousness is the awareness behind our thoughts, if it's the witness to everything we feel, think, and experience, then how does the brain fit in? This is where science steps in and where the mystery gets even more interesting. For decades, researchers have studied how consciousness and the brain interact. So they've identified what are called neural correlates of consciousness. These are patterns of brain activity that seem to line up with different states of awareness, like being awake, dreaming, or even under anesthesia. But here's the thing. Just because a brain state correlates with consciousness doesn't mean it creates it. Think of it like this. If you turn on the TV, the screen lights up with an image, right? But that doesn't mean the screen is creating the show. It's just receiving it and displaying it. Could the brain be doing the same thing when it comes to consciousness? That question is at the center of what philosopher David Chalmers called the hard problem of consciousness. How does physical matter, the meat and the electricity of the brain, give rise to subjective experiences? How does a lump of gray tissue produce something as vivid as love or grief or the sensation of tasting chocolate? We all know that's an amazing sensation. And so far, science doesn't have a clear answer. Some researchers believe that consciousness emerges from complexity, that if you connect enough neurons in the right way, awareness just appears. Others say, and I tend to agree with this, that's like thinking a pile of wires eventually just becomes a soul. So here's a more radical theory. One that says consciousness doesn't come from the brain at all. It says consciousness may be a fundamental property of the universe, like gravity or time. And the brain? It's more like a radio. It tunes into consciousness, but it doesn't generate it. This view is backed by some very surprising research and ideas, especially in the field of quantum physics. Have you ever heard of the orchestrated objective reduction theory? It's a mouthful, but here's the idea in plain terms. So two scientists propose that consciousness arises from tiny quantum processes happening inside the microtubules of neurons. These processes aren't bound by time and space the way normal brain activity is. In theory, they could explain how consciousness connects beyond the individual. While we sometimes feel what others are feeling or sense something before it happens, I know this happens many times in my world. Now, is it proven? No. Is it controversial? Absolutely. But is it worth exploring? I think so. So let me ask you this. Have you ever had a dream where you met someone you've never seen before, but you wake up feeling like you know them? Or maybe you've had a moment where time felt like it was stretched or stopped completely. These little glitches in our ordinary experience, those beyond the veil moments, might be glimpses into a deeper quantum level of consciousness. And then there's the observer effect, one of the strangest findings in quantum physics, and I love it. When scientists observe a particle, it behaves differently than when it's not being observed, which means the act of observation changes reality. Just the awareness of the observer has an effect. Let that sink in. If awareness can shift particles on the quantum level, what does that say about your thoughts, your attention, and your intention? Could it be that consciousness isn't just something inside you, but something that shapes everything around you? Now let's talk about one more theory that continues to gain traction: non-local consciousness. This is the idea that consciousness isn't confined to your brain or your body. It can extend beyond space and time. This just might explain things like near-death experiences, remote viewing, telepathy, or shared dreams. Even the inexplicable knowing that happens between people who are deeply connected. In fact, some studies on people in deep meditation or altered states show measurable brain activity that doesn't match the physical environment they're in. It's almost like they're tuning into a different station, a different layer of reality. How fascinating is this? So, if your thoughts can affect your brain and your brain can affect your body, then what else might consciousness be affecting? Could your awareness ripple out into your relationships, your environment, or the collective field? Now that we've explored the personal experience of consciousness, the observer within, the brain, the quantum field, let's widen the lens. Let's talk about us. Because even though we experience consciousness individually, there's something in us that knows that we're not separate. We're connected. You've probably felt it. The energy in a room when someone walks in, the way your mood can shift when you're around someone anxious or heavy, or how laughter can spread like wildfire in a group. This is the beginning of what we call collective consciousness. Psychologist Carl Jung called it collective unconscious. He believed that beneath our personal subconscious minds, there's a shared reservoir, a field of symbols, instincts, memories, and wisdom that all humans have access to. It's where archetypes live. It's why certain symbols appear in myths across every culture, even when these cultures do not communicate. And why a child in one part of the world might have the same nightmare as a child across the globe, because consciousness might not be local to our individual minds. There's another idea that I want to share with you, one that stretches this a little further. It's called morphic resonance. This scientist proposed that when a pattern of behavior is repeated enough, whether it's learned, culture, or even thoughts, it leaves an imprint in a shared field. That imprint makes it easier for others to access it. So for example, if one group of monkeys learn how to crack open a nut using a rock, that learning somehow becomes more accessible to the other monkeys, even on separate islands you've never seen before. Some call this 100-monkey effect. It's controversial, it hasn't been fully proven, but it reflects something many of us feel to be true, that consciousness is contagious, that healing is contagious, that awakening is collective. Think about this. Ideas and innovations often show up in multiple places at the same time. Two scientists on different continents invent the same thing within months of each other without even speaking. People start using the same phrases online, or dress a certain way, or exploring the same topics without any clear source. What if that's not coincidence? Which I personally believe it's not, because I don't believe in coincidences. So what if we're all drawing from the same field of consciousness? And when one person remembers something, it creates a ripple effect that others start to feel too. So what does that mean for you? It means that your healing doesn't just affect you. When you become more self-aware, you raise the frequency for those around you. When you face your fear with compassion instead of avoidance, you shift the field. When you speak your truth, even if your voice shakes and you are scared to death, you give others permission to do the same. This is collective consciousness in action. Listen to how amazing this is. There have been global meditations, thousands, even millions of people focusing on peace or healing. And guess what? Measurable effects followed. Crime rates dropped, tensions decreased. The energetic field, measured in subtle ways, actually shifted. This is absolutely fascinating. Some scientists and researchers are now studying this as part of what's called the Global Consciousness Project. They've used random number generators to detect changes in the background noise of consciousness. There are over 70 generator host sites around the world, and during significant world events like 9/11 or major mass meditations, those numbers shift from pure randomness to noticeable patterns, all of them together. Is that proof? No, not in a rigid scientific sense. But does it spark curiosity? Yes. Is it compelling? Absolutely. And just for the record, it's proof enough for me. So let's talk about synchronicity for a moment. Have you ever had someone come to mind and then they call you? Or had a dream that felt like a message, not just for you, but from someone else? These shared experiences might be moments where your consciousness and theirs overlap, where the boundaries between me and you dissolve just enough for something deeper to come through. Healing, awareness, and growth, they ripple far beyond the individual. That's what collective consciousness feels like. It's not always loud or mystical. Sometimes it's as quiet as a shared silence, or as wild as 100 people having the same dream at the same time. So the next time that you feel like your growth doesn't matter, that no one is listening, or that your healing is too small to make a difference, I want you to remember this. When you shift your consciousness, you shift the whole field. And even if no one around you understands it, they feel it. Trust me. Because we're all connected. So in the next and the final part of the episode, we're going to bring it all home. So what actually happens when we begin to live more consciously? What does that mean? And what does that look like? Let's talk about awakening. So awakening isn't always this big spiritual moment with flashing signs and breakthroughs, trust me. Most of the time, awakening looks like choosing awareness in the middle of ordinary life. It's catching yourself mid-reaction, pausing before you repeat an old pattern, noticing the tone in your voice, recognizing the story that you're telling yourself and choosing not to believe it. It's not a level that you unlock, it's a way you live, consistently, intentionally, and lovingly. Awakening is not loud or flashy, it's subtle, it's quiet, it's a devotion to truth, moment by moment. But here's something important. Your level of consciousness is deeply shaped by the nervous system. Because when we live in chronic stress, trauma, or hypervigilance, it's hard to access awareness. It's hard to pause, to reflect, and to observe. Because your body is doing exactly what it's designed to do, which is survive. It's scanning for threats, anticipating danger, trying to stay one step ahead. And in that state, consciousness narrows. That's why healing, real embodied healing, isn't just emotional or mental, it's spiritual. When you begin to regulate your nervous system, when you breathe into the tension instead of avoiding it, when you stop bypassing what hurts and actually feel it all the way through, you open a portal to something deeper. You create the space for a higher awareness to move through you. That's not just healing, that's awakening. And the irony, awakening doesn't usually feel like a mountaintop high. It looks like choosing rest instead of proving your worth. And it's like remembering in your bones that you are safe enough to be fully present. And when you're fully present, not lost in the past, not rushing into the future, but anchored in this breath, this moment, that's where consciousness expands. That's where clarity lives. That's where love feels less like a concept and more like a frequency inside your chest. So let's talk about something we hear a lot in the spiritual space, raising your vibration. What does it really mean? Because it's not just always about being happy. It's not about bypassing hard emotions or pretending everything is love and light. And at the core, raising your vibration means shifting the quality of your awareness. It's moving from fear to trust, from resistance to flow, from ego-led patterns to soul-led presence. And you don't get there by avoiding the dark. You get there by walking through it with awareness. This is why real spiritual growth includes things like shadow work, facing the parts of you that you've buried or disowned, energy healing, releasing stored emotions and restoring balance, and radical emotional honesty with yourself first and then others. Because when you reclaim the parts of yourself that you've abandoned, your energy rises, your integrity strengthens, and your consciousness deepens. How do we pull all of this into our daily lives? Here are a few practices that I come back to again and again. Meditation, not to escape your thoughts, but to notice the stillness between them. Body-based awareness, breath work, somatics, grounding. These bring you back to your center. Presence in the ordinary. Eat without a screen. Listen without interrupting. Notice the wind, the nature, everything around you. Powerful self-inquiry. Ask, what am I really feeling? Or is this a reaction or a response? Aligned action. Sometimes raising your consciousness means speaking up or walking away or just simply resting. Every time you choose awareness over autopilot, you're choosing consciously. Every time you move from intention instead of habit, you're awakening. And yes, sometimes this can feel lonely. As you become more conscious, you might start to see things that others don't. You may feel more sensitive to energy, more aware of disconnection in your relationships, more tuned in to subtle shifts around you. You may grieve the parts of your old life that don't align anymore. But I want you to remember this. You are never alone on this path. Because every time you raise your awareness, you help lift the collective field. You give permission for others to wake up too. Your presence is part of the greater awakening. So maybe this is what consciousness truly is. Not something to master or to achieve, but something to return to again and again. And the pause before you speak, and the feeling behind your reaction, and the silence that comes when you ask yourself, what's true for me right now? That is the work. That is the practice. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Carl Jung. You are not here to escape humanity. You are here to bring your soul fully into it. And that, my friend, changes everything. Thank you for walking this path with me today. Thank you for sitting in this mystery, for being willing to question what's real, and for feeling deeply. And remember what you've always known, deep within you. So take what you've heard today into your relationships, into your body, into your being. Because consciousness isn't something that you have, it's something that you are. So until next time, stay grounded, stay curious, and remember, you are exactly where you're meant to be.